what I can do here.
Looks like Connie being very quiet.
Okay, Mark, you're the host now.
All right, I'm going to try sharing this. Tell me if it works.
So
I can stop till we all get there, but I think it looks like it's working fine.
Looks good.
Mark, apologies in advance. I've got to duck out at 4:15 to go to a high school concert tonight. So if you see me sign off, that's where I'm heading.
Me too.
And the meeting may not be longer than 45 minutes.
I don't know that it will be.
Which is always a good sign in a building committee.
That's right. Is there a concert at the high school tonight?
It is a high school concert, and it's at the Franco-American Center in Lewiston.
Excellent.
The consequence of not having an auditorium.
I was going to say, just think.
We're all here rectifying as we speak.
Absolutely.
I do want to note for folks at the meeting that David Strom, one of our capable technology engineers, will be recording the meeting tonight so it can be posted to our website. So once Dr. Brown starts the meeting, Dave will begin recording it.
Great.
Okay. And I might have to, both Karen and Pam Hart are unavailable. So Pat, I know it's short notice. Would you like to step in as chair this evening?
Sure.
That would be awesome, because if I have to go, then thank you for being able to do that.
What do I do? Just go down through the agenda? If you leave before we're done? Okay, I can do that. Good.
So do we want to start the meeting now? I don't know who else might be coming.
I didn't receive any regrets. Did you, Mark, when you sent out the invitation?
No, just the ones we talked about.
Okay. Well, what do you think, Pat? As Chair Pro Tem, do you want to get started?
Sure, it's 6:02 p.m. So let's get going. I guess everybody knows everybody who's here. So let's go on to the second, which is a percent for art update. Who's going to do that?
That would be myself. So I'll jump to the percent for art slide. Here we go. So the update since the last time we met is we had 15 artists who submitted proposals. And the committee met on the 8th and narrowed the 15 down to 3. And all 3 of those artists had chosen the common stair wall as their location, which is the wall that you see in the image on the lower left-hand corner. And it is the white portion of that wall. And the 3 artists will present their work to the committee on June 13th at Edward Little High School. So it's exciting. We're getting closer and closer.
So Lisa, can I ask a follow-up question? I think it's obvious to all. So this must be a hanging piece. It's not a statue. It's not some other form of art. This is going to go on the wall.
Correct. Yep.
I know that different high schools I've seen they've used their percent for art in other ways. So this is definitely a hanging piece.
It's hanging or applied to that wall. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. And what is the wall again, Lisa? Is it the one with the steps for the kids?
Yeah, I don't know if you can, I don't think you can see my mouse, but it is the one where you see the steps where they run into that white wall.
Uh-huh.
Mark is putting his cursor on it right now. That wall right there would be where the installation would go.
Okay, all right.
Lisa, can you hint at what the dimensions of that piece will be? Is it going to cover most of the wall, some of the wall?
I don't know that we know, and I'm not specifically on the committee. I know Scott is. Scott, I think essentially they're presenting to you their ultimate kind of solution, correct?
Yeah. Yes. Most of the proposals focus in the working draft piece that we send out, there were identified areas that would be subject for them to submit for their proposal. So there were some, we did identify some outside areas if they wanted to do, a sculpture piece for the outside, as well as there were multiple places within the building that they could select. And the 3 that we happened to whittle down to the finalists all selected that area. And 2 of them took up the entire area, and 1 had more of a smallish piece for that area. And so the next time we meet is for us to ask them some more questions about their proposal, because it's not a completed proposal, as well as for them to ask us some questions more about what we're looking for, as well as they could use some other spaces that we had identified for them if they wanted to in their piece of work.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but essentially they provide the proposal so that you get a feel for their work and generally where they're going to put it. And then through the selection process, the actual art kind of is resolved in the different locations.
Correct. It's still nothing is really cast in stone, so to speak. We can manipulate and work with the artist about where their piece is, how it's arranged and set up, and for them to get feedback. It's more of a feedback process. Well, not more of it. It allows for feedback in that process from some back and forth, and really to get a stronger understanding of the piece of work that they are proposing, as well as some of the costs associated with that.
Scott, are you going to light it?
That is a possibility that would really have to come through if that is something that they're envisioning for their piece, or that's something that's left up to us as the owners if we want to have that lit up.
Lisa, how much work is that if we decide to light something in that area on that wall?
Essentially, we would need to know, sooner than later, how large the installation is, what type of lighting the artist would want, so that we could get the wiring run to that location. When the walls are open, it's not that much, but once the walls are closed, it's a lot more work. So it'd be something that we would ask the committee to try and have the artists identify as soon as possible as part of this, so that we can put in a proposal to get that put into the walls.
And some parts of their proposal, and looking and examining at that, lighting is a consideration for them because of the materials that they may or may not be using. So that is definitely something that can be part of the discussion.
And Scott, are the kids voting at all on this?
No, this was, from my understanding, the process works based on the committee's work.
Thanks.
They have a very prescribed set of participants in the process.
Anyone else have comments or questions? All right. Let's go on to the furniture, fixture, and equipment procurement process update. That's a big, long sentence.
So we refer to furniture, fixtures, and equipment as FFE. So we can shorten that somewhat. Okay. If folks forget what that is, just ask us for sure. So FF&E, and the way we delineate that for folks that don't deal with it all the time is, if you think of the building, and you pretend to take the roof off and you turn it upside down and you shake it, everything that pretty much falls out of the building falls into the category of FF&E. Few exceptions, any technology that's adhered to the wall. Anyway, we have a subcommittee, which Scott and Anir helped us pull together. We have 17 staff members that were in attendance of the first kickoff meeting on April 25th. And we provided a presentation that explained the procurement process. We also educated the committee on the future of flexible classroom furniture. And some of our next steps are setting up tours so that the committee can see successful examples of successful furniture installations of recent high schools. two that we have identified this far and are trying to actively arrange are Mount Ararat and Morris High School. And the subcommittee will look to try and do those tours if we can squeeze it in before the end of school. We'll try and do that and then we'll resume meetings with them in the fall. And our group will be busy doing furniture inventory through the summer, and are also working with vendors to try to get sample furniture pieces into the school for staff and students to try out when they return. So that is the update on FF&E procurement process. Are there any questions on that update?
So I guess this is a question for Mark. We have furniture that we're moving from EL into the new building, right? That's relatively new.
Mark, you're muted.
Mark Conrad should be able to answer that.
Yes, I'm sorry, I forgot I was muted. Yes, so that's why we included an inventory component to the contract with Harriman. So they'll come in and inventory the furniture being moved. A lot of it is pretty straightforward, where it's the new classroom furniture. There may be other items that Scott is planning on moving over to the building. So Harriman and Scott will work together to identify all of those items, and then we'll coordinate that in the move process.
So will what's not being used be cascaded down or sold, or?
So typically a couple things can happen with it, having been through this in the last few years for Mount Ararat High School. There may be some furniture that still has some good life in it that we would make available first to our other schools, and we can coordinate that, a process for that for selection from the other principals and moving it out to the other schools. Some of the furniture may be furniture that other school districts would like, and we would actually sell it to them. So one of the things we did at Mount Ararat, we had some science tables, for example, that are really sought after. We put it out on a listserv to other districts and actually made some money selling it to them at a reasonable price. And then the other item you typically see is a community yard sale. That's something I've been through a couple of times where either a student group or some of us from the district office coordinate a community yard sale so that furniture can be recycled by folks in the community who are willing to pay a small price for it. And then whatever we can't get rid of has to go into has to be disposed of. So it's a complicated process, requires careful scheduling, but it usually works pretty well.
All right, I'm going to plug in for Share Center if you have anything left at the end of the day.
Yes, and I think the Share Center may be an active participant in that process because we know that then whatever they get winds up back in school. So
it does.
Keep them in mind.
Yeah. I can't turn my sound off, and I'm getting a long message from my sister-in-law. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. Okay, any more questions about the furniture FFE update? Sounds exciting, as the whole thing is for me, as you all know. How about the construction update?
So we're going to ask Steve Frazier to give us a little bit of an update on what we've got going on here.
Sure. They're doing pretty much a whole slew of tasks throughout the building, everything from finishing some concrete work in the CTE area to start the rough-in of electrical, plumbing, mechanical systems in the A and D wings, which is the education classroom side of the building. So pretty much every trade you can think of is working in some capacity in some part of the building right now. In the CTE area, there's a lot of concrete block in that area between the rooms.
The theater and then rise up from there. So that's a comfortable, cost-effective way of doing it. And then the lower right-hand photo shows at the cross aisle between the lower seats and the back seats, you can really get the sense of how the cantilevering of the balcony and the shape of the balcony, which it rings around in that arcing form, is really a big part of the design of the theater itself.
So, Mark, can you remind me, is there fabric on the seats?
So the seats have a fabric on them. Yes. Yep, they do. It's a black fabric.
So do you have samples of that or swatches that we could take a look at?
Sure do. Yep.
Okay. Scott, looks like another trip for colors.
I love it.
So is there one choice with that, Mark, or has the color been selected?
Yeah, I think it's already been put through. I think let me go back a photo to see if that showed us you can almost see it in some of these seats, this photo a little bit better. You can see on the seats themselves, it's a wood back to it, and then it's a black fabric on that as well. But we've got.
Yeah, I believe the swatch is on the color board that you guys have.
Yeah.
I know that black is awfully hard to keep clean. So, for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, and we looked at a couple things. We look at the durability both from an abrasive point of view as well as from the ability to maintain and clean it. And so and we'll share with you what that is. It also has to have a flame and smoke spread criteria to it as well, a classification. So all those play into it. And I think we've got all that criteria right on that swatch.
Okay. Actually, if that's not that big, Steve, maybe you could bring that to the next building committee meeting. Just as not building committee, construction meeting.
Yeah, I can bring it next Monday.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
Okay. In fact, yeah, you can start to see these side galleries here, and then you can also start to see the loading platforms on the side of the stage back here. So Jonathan, it's all that we thought. It's actually coming to life here. So
before our next meeting, all the concrete should be placed in this area, and their plan is going to be quite interesting. They plan on parking the concrete pump truck on the stage and pumping the concrete through the theater from there. So it's going to be quite a gymnastic feat to get that in and pipe it down. So we should have a good photo to show you.
Is green room as part of the auditorium?
say that again, Connie.
Is there a green room as part of the theater and auditorium?
No, we've got some of the spaces behind in the music area that we've identified to be able to use as a green room prior to. So we had conversations about that, and the question was thinking about what the state's going to pay for and how much of how could we use some of the other spaces that won't be being occupied before performances. And I think we're looking at
this is the main gym.
Gym, yeah. And so I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're looking out to the front of the building on the right photo.
Yep. So
you can almost see through the corridor to the auxiliary gym in the front. And the CTE wing is to the side of it here. And then the early childhood ed is over on the front side of it here.
And the reason why it looks like light is coming through the roof deck is because the roof deck in this area is perforated, and it has an acoustical material behind it. So it's like a really cool sunshade right now.
And if I'm not mistaken, Steve, we're on the upper level in the left-hand photo, looking down to where the entrance to the gym is. So this is that lobby. We're almost looking down into that lobby of the secondary entrance.
Right.
Here's our courtyard. This is looking over at one of the two-story bars that then connect to the three-story classroom wing. So you can see the layers, the silver material, and then you can start to see the barrier, the air and vapor barrier. That's the black membrane on some of this. Then you'll start to see the pink insulation, and then on top of that, you'll start to see some of the systems to hold. Either we'll have anchors to hold the brick veneer, or we'll have the subsystem that holds onto metal siding. And then the windows that Steve was talking about that got tested, start to see the windows being installed throughout the building. Anything else, Steve, on that one?
I'll just add, I think we have 4 or 5 days of window testing in the project. And each day they come up, they'll randomly test. I think probably next time they'll do 5 or 6 windows. The first time they did 4 windows because it takes a bit of time to get set up. And these are randomly tested windows.
And the truck in the center is actually lifting insulation onto the roof.
Right.
Very good. And Steve, we'll keep you right on and give us an update on where we are, or Mark, I guess, can also chime in here on the budget snapshot.
Yeah, so it looks like we're at 36% complete, but that's total project. So a lot of that is that initial site work. So I wouldn't say we're 36% complete on the building yet. But project-wise, that's where we stand. And the construction contingency, we're still really good on that, but we've got to keep in mind the cost overruns expected for the PCB removal. And we don't know what those costs are yet, but we're getting closer to knowing.
Good. Any questions on that or comments? Okay.
Fundraising, is that Pam?
Well, actually, we have one more budget snapshot, Pat,
Okay, sorry.
that you probably can't see. So this is a snapshot of the entire budget with all of the different lines. There's really not a lot to say about the budget at this stage in the project, as Mark noted, until we get those costs in, or Steve, until we get those costs in for the PCB abatement, and then that'll give us a much clearer picture of whether we're under or over budget through the contingency, and what we may be looking at for difficulty in staying on budget. We'll have to wait and see what that looks like. But for now, things are moving along pretty well. I think probably the line, other than the potential PCB liabilities, I think construction testing is an area where there's some concern that we're going to run up over budget, but remaining lines seem to be in line. So we'll keep providing the reports, and I think it'll be quiet for a while before we're a number of months off, I think, Steve, before we actually get understand the cost of the PCB abatement. So
Yeah, and the way that's getting structured, we'll know how much it costs to remove the PCBs from the building. But the shipping and disposal of it to where it needs to go is a number that won't happen until it's actually done. So that'll be a lingering number.
Yeah. Okay, so any questions on the budget? Since, okay, thank you.
So the next topic identified in the agenda is the fundraising update. I don't know who wants to take that.
I can take that briefly because Pam can't be here tonight. She's the chair of the fundraising committee. I think we've moved well along in establishing a naming rights program for fundraising. We are having individuals in the community say, are there any items that haven't been included in the budget that would be beneficial to the students? And so a number of us, Dr. Brown, Scott, Todd Sampson, our athletic director, myself, started working with Steve and Dave Lewis to understand some of the items that were not in the budget, either because the funding alternates couldn't be funded, or there was some reductions in the budget to bring it in line with the available project money. And the item that's really jumped out at us that is not included in the budget are dugouts for the new baseball and softball fields. And that seems to be the most critical item. So we've had a conversation with Todd Sampson to ask him to begin to put together a plan for what we might want to see for dugouts and what that cost might be. We're thinking it makes sense to work with the general contractor perhaps to lay the foundation for the dugouts, because that really has to be sequenced carefully with the installation of the field so you're not running concrete trucks over a new ball field. But from a cost perspective, we'd be better off working either potentially with some of our students who make tiny houses or local contractors to come in after we reach substantial completion and complete the dugouts on our own. So Todd's going to be working up some plans and costs for that, and hopefully by the early fall we'll be able to come forward to the fundraising committee and make a proposal. So that will be the initial focus of our efforts for identifying funds that we would like to raise for a specific item that can benefit the students. And I think that's it for fundraising.
Mark, is there a goal that you're looking for with the fundraising? I know there was some expectations when the building project went through.
I see that Dr. Brown had to leave. Oh, Dr. Brown is still there. So I think we're talking two different pieces to fundraising. What I was referencing a moment ago was raising money for a specific item that isn't in the budget, but there were also some general expectations of raising funds to offset the impact on the tax rate. I think, Dr. Brown, you're probably in a better position to address that.
The entire cost of the school was approved by voters at the ballot, with like one exception, and that's the second turf field. So it's other than legacy naming rights, which are available to people, we don't have to raise. I mean, there's nothing in the project that isn't paid for, that we could say we won't get a larger auditorium because we haven't raised sufficient funds. Right. What I am hearing from people in the community is that they'd like to donate for a specific item. They'd like to donate, for example, a grand piano. And Mark, can you talk just a little bit about the structure of the two accounts that would allow people to do that?
So there's actually, if we were fundraising for specific items, we would set up a separate account to cover the cost of those items. And I believe that can be run through the project budget. And then the additional funds from the naming rights, I think we haven't really determined how that would be carried forward and used to offset any costs to the project or any cost to the annual debt service costs. So I think we'd have to have some discussion with the cities on that. I think that some of the difficulty there's real difficulty in fundraising just against the cost of the project, because donors want to give for specific items. And from my experience in SAD 75, that had a very active fundraising effort, there are a lot of small to mid donors out there in terms of banks or local businesses that are looking at the $5, $10, $15, $20,000 range, but they all want to be able to point to something they've contributed for the benefit of students for that. So I think that goes to the point that Dr. Brown is making, which is that we can build we have the budget to build the school that we need. There may be some specific items we want to add to that through a fundraising effort, but I think it's really the naming rights that will drive the general fundraising piece, if there's interest in that. And we'll see what that brings in. We really don't know.
Well, and just Mark, to add to that, we do have a group that has pledged, I think it's $400,000 to name the auditorium. So that's a big step forward. And I think, and Scott, you might remember, is it a class? But they want to name it after a person, right?
Yeah, it was the combination of the class of 1951 and the Donald Gay Scholarship. So they kind of run jointly, and so that those groups under one umbrella of one group are who we're talking about.
Okay. And the school committee voted to lower the threshold for those naming rights. So if it goes through, it will be named that Donald Gay Auditorium. Scott, how are we coming along? I know you got the photos of the stadium. Any interest? And I think you talked with some alumni about that.
Yeah, I met with the Alumni Association and walked through, similar to what Mark just talked about, of some of the identified things, which was very much in line of what they wanted to talk about, as well as cataloging many of the awards that are in the building and some of the history. And yes, we did talk about that, and that's much in line of what that group is interested in. And, I still have some class reunions this summer, so that I've been asked to attend to give updates and to talk about, some of the opportunities for them to donate to the specific things that those groups say that's what they want to target.
So some of the other things we have talked about is the grand piano, which you mentioned. There's no ticket booth at the entrance to athletic fields. And I think at the end of the day, people will be disappointed with the landscaping because that was cut in half as a way to reduce the overdraft on the budget when the bids came in. And I think the state doesn't provide much allowance for landscaping. So my fear is you have a landscaping budget that might not be much more than what you would find in a new home. So I guess you're probably going to buy some trees with it across the lot, but there's not going to be a lot of vegetation around the building. So that may be an area where we can get some interested folks involved in working with us to plan and raise some funds for landscaping as we get further into the project.
With the naming rights, are you going to do some opportunities for people that might want to give $100 or $200 for a seat or the naming of something like that, or is that gone by the board too?
So I think, what was the seat, Scott? $250, $500?
Yeah, I had asked Cindy for those documents, and it's got to be somewhere because that was some of the information that I brought to that alumni association. But you're right; it's $250 or $500 for a seat, and it may actually be both. Some are the basic seat, maybe $250, and front rows or the front two rows, maybe $500, something along those lines.
Okay. Some people are asking. I just didn't know what to say. So. Good.
Gotta go, folks.
Well,
take care. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Very good. Our last wrap-up comment is that the bi-weekly construction meetings are the first and third Monday on the site. So, and then our next building committee meeting is to be determined.
Is this every other month working out well? So if we're now meeting at the second Tuesday in May, so we'd be looking at July. Is there a desire to meet in the summer and on a nice July evening? I don't know if we'll be at a point where we can actually take a tour of the facility at that point, but we'll be able to see a lot of progress, I would think, even in the pictures, which were so well done.
Yeah, I think we may want to wait until we get concrete floors through the first floor, but that may be a reality in 2 months.
So if we were looking at the second Tuesday in July, it'd be July 12th. Is that a date that we can work with, just to be consistent?
I think that sounds like it makes sense at this point, and we can always, I suppose, adjust if we need to, Mark, but that seems like it's a good plan.
And being the summer, we know we may have a few people on a vacation, but that's going to happen throughout the summer. So,
yep.
Okay, so we'll say tentatively Tuesday, July 12th at 6 o'clock.
Very good.
And you think it'll be in person then?
We haven't really suggested going in person. How do people feel the Zoom's been working out?
Well, no, I was thinking if we were going to have it, if we were going to go on site to see.
Oh, if we're going to do a tour, yeah.
Then it would be, but we were just saying that maybe it's too early in July because they won't have all the concrete poured. So we'll have to wait until we get a little bit further in the process.
Okay. Well, Zoom might work well if people are on vacation and
I think so.
want to
Sure.
sacrifice an hour.
That's what you want to do when you're at the beach on a tropical island.
That's it.
Zoom into the building committee meeting.
Right. So, all right. Well, it sounds like we've done.
Yeah.
All right. Do you usually take a motion to adjourn, or are we just going to adjourn?
I think we just adjourned, don't we?
I think that makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay.
All right.
All right, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks for jumping.
Nice job, Pat.
Thank you.
Okay.